Hi, it's Professor Monte. Let's look at graphs of inequalities and interval notation. Okay, so when we see x is less than or x is less than or equal to, we're going to shade to the left. One thing that I think helps is the inequality. As long as x is on the left, the inequality is facing the way the arrow is. So if you can see that as an arrowhead, that means, oh, I'm going to graph to the left. Again, the x has to be on the left for that to be true. If I have x greater than or x greater than or equal to, I'm going to shade to the right. Again, it's pointing to the right, so that's the way I'm going to shade. As far as interval notation goes, if x is less than or x is greater than, I'm just going to use the parentheses. The parentheses means it does not include the value, whatever x is. But if I have less than or equal to or greater than equal, I'm going to use the brackets. The bracket means it starts at that point and has everything either to the left or the right, whichever way I'm graphing. Note, though, never use the brackets for infinity or negative infinity because those are concepts of it going forever in one direction or the other. They're not numbers that it gets to. Okay, so that's the idea. So let's look at some examples. So I've got x greater than or equal to 4. Well, number line, if I put 4 in there, greater than or equal to means, oh, greater than means I'm going to go off to the right. The equal says I'm going to include the bracket. So graphically, it's going to look like this. I include the number 4 and anything bigger. Oftentimes when we first learn this concept, they use the closed dot and the open dot. This would have been the closed dot going off to the right. And if I don't have the equal as the open dot, we use the bracket for the closed dot, for the equals, because it ties into interval notation. So this is the graph I'm going to use. The interval notation looks like this. It's going to start with that same bracket at the 4. That tells the reader, hey, include the number 4. And then since we're going off to the right, think, going off to the right forever, I'm going towards infinity. So that means I go forever to the right. I don't use a bracket on the infinity because it's not stopping and including that as a value. It's not a value. Okay? And had I gone this way, it would be negative infinity. We'll see that on some of the other problems. Okay, so that's my interval notation. That's my graph. All right, next one, x is less than 5. Similar idea. Here's my 5. Less than means I go to the left, pointing that way. This time there's no equal sign, so I don't use a bracket. I use a parenthesis. Now, some students get confused and they say, well, isn't less than 5 the same as less than or equal to 4? No, because this includes like 4.99, 4.7. Everything up to not quite including 5, which is barely less than 5, and then forever to the left. Remember, this is negative infinity is where it's going towards over here. It doesn't get there, so interval notation, we go negative infinity, comma 5, parentheses on both sides. That's going to be my answer. Never quite gets to 5, but gets really close. Another thing you want to look for, you always go left to right in interval notation. You wouldn't write this as 5 to negative infinity. You want it to look like your number line looks. So negative infinity is as far to the left as it goes. 5 almost is as far to the right it goes. Now, this one, students don't like. I read this in my head as x is greater than 2. But so why not just write it that way? Notice it's pointing at the 2. We still have a pointing at the 2. This is easier for me to graph. So when I graph that, I say, oh, here's my 2. X is greater than 2, doesn't include it, so parentheses, off to the right. Left to right, 2, going to the right forever, infinity. And this one, it's called a compound inequality. It's 2 inequalities in one. One is saying x is less than 7. But this one is saying x is greater than or equal to 3. Well, we put it this way. Notice they're both pointing in the same direction. They have to be pointing in the same direction in order to write it as a compound inequality. Because this says x is greater than this one or equal to. This one says it's less than that. I just look at it as, oh, it's between these two numbers. So between 3 and 7, here's 3, here's 7. 7's a parenthesis. It's less than 7, but it's also greater than or equal to 3. And it's everything in between. So interval notation is just bracket 3 to 7. So it includes 3, and then everything up to 6.99, really close to 7, but doesn't quite get to 7. Anything just less than 7. Okay, so those are some examples. My graphs, my interval notation. Practice these. You'll use these quite a bit. You'll be surprised at how much you use these as you go on. Anytime we have inequalities, obviously we're going to use these. So practice them. You'll get better and better.